So this is a bit of a different video because this one isn't actually aimed at GMs that much, it's more aimed at players. What I mean by that is that this video is here to explain the amount of effort that goes into making and running one of these games. Because I don't think that that's widely understood and should be valued more. I will take the Meat Grinder Eldorado as an example for this. So if you do plan on playing this mission, I do urge you to not watch this, I guess. But that would be with any of the missions that I have made, so I just chose this one because it's the most recent, as it is the second to last one that I finished making. First I will show you this. This is just the notes document that this mission has. You can see it's a bit over 200 lines. I have removed some stuff. There's a lot of screenshots and stuff in it for reference, like enemy locations that obviously a plain text cannot have. But what does it need? It needs a full-on lore doc for the location. That's also, I think, 7 or 8 pages. It's separated into acts. Each act does need different things. It needs to account for NPCs, what's their general... How do I say this? What's their general attitude? Who are they? Why are they there? Then you need to describe them. Then you need to start with, where does this take place? Why does it take place here? Who can you see here? What do you get from them? How will this actually help you advance? What's the actual goal of this game? What's the climax of it? Then what are the different paths you can pursue? Because there's not just one path, there are multiple paths. They converge again at some point, but they diverge because there are multiple. And then you need to find some ending to a mission. Just to kind of give a time frame for this. Making this document took me close to probably 6 to 8 hours. This does include testing some of the encounters just quickly. Sorry for my players, but I often just abuse players that haven't left my game room to just play their characters against my encounters to test them. So that sometimes happens. But you need to test some encounters, find out what's fair, find out some interactions that you can use that are interesting. For example, if you have played the Meat Grinder in the Wyvern battle, there is a Wormling. This Wormling has a purpose. It can use its breath weapon to give you disadvantage on strength checks, which will give you disadvantage on being grappled by the Wyvern in its next turn. That's a mechanic that you have to think about when making an encounter. Especially more when your encounters are already predetermined to a certain point. Which is the case here, which does lead to you needing to consider a lot more. I do help myself. This is only for myself. I cannot speak for other GMs. I myself help me by running some versions of large language models like Llama, or what is it called? Wizard, I think, is the one from Microsoft. And training them on certain files, like the lore document and some general old jobs. This does help, but it takes some know-how, and it definitely takes also time to set up and get everything trained on this stuff. And that takes time, electricity, money, and just general brain power. But it's not done here. Because when you make this document, you have to consider other things. You need to start thinking about what maps to choose. Do I have a map that fits the scene? Do I need to make a map? If I need to make a map, what kind of map do I need to make? Is it something like the guild hall that takes 10 to 16 hours to complete? Or is it something quick and dirty like a forest? Because just a small forest that you need for players to battle some goblins isn't something that you can't just bang out in like 20 minutes. So, for example, this is a very simple forest. You can place some goblins, you can use the bridge for some choke points to give the goblins a chance to maybe deal some damage, because most players will let their tank run. And if you just have like 4 goblins over here, they're just gonna slaughter them, so you need to create some kind of a choke point. But you need to plan this out, make the map, be happy with it. And this is a very small map. This is a 15 by 15 squares map, so that goes quick. Something like this takes a lot longer. If you use scenes or need to make bigger maps, that takes a lot longer. So there are a lot of things to think about. For example, pirate detectives. I haven't ran this in a while. Oh, look, some players. This is a lot bigger of a map. It's also a lot older of a map, so it's ugly, but it gets the point across. But this is a lot bigger of a map. And this map, because it is needed for a future puzzle, also needs more thinking about it. This lighting needs to be there, it needs to be kind of done, it needs to have some NPCs, and obviously after playing you need to reset this map, or you have a second version that you copy. But let's go back to Eldorado. So, Eldorado in general has a lot of scenes. As you can see, it has 12 scenes in total. I usually have a map for each scene. So here we have, for example, for replenishment, we have the scene that is during the explanation, then the scene for playing, the scene for after that, explanation, last scene. And a alternative scene if this one doesn't fit the group or doesn't fit the vibe. There's just some alternative locations in case. To me, Eldorado has a lot of scenes and it doesn't have any optional scenes, which is different, but it also brings you some more problems. You need to find these maps. So, for example, this is the gate that you take into the city of Eldorado. This is obviously a pre-made map. Used under the Gepeco commercial license as outlined in their licensing terms, blah 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 blah. License your stuff. Licensing stuff properly is hot. Anyway, you still need to find the map, and sometimes you need to make some modifications to it to make it fit more, to add some little stuff in it, load it into a editing program and start doing some stuff. Then you have some scenes where you need to also prepare tokens, you need to prepare some other stuff. Here, for example, I need to prepare Valerius and have him there before the whole thing starts. And this map has the problem currently that it has a lot of dead space, but that's only for what it was used. It will be used a lot better in this game, so that's something to consider. Then I also have maps like this map, as it loads. This map does not serve any mechanical purpose. This is simply a mood setter. This is only here to show players, hey, what's going on. This one does have some purpose, but it's also, again, mostly a mood setter. Hey players, this is this faction, this is how they are. This is the environment where they are. This is kind of what you're experiencing right now. And this is the other place where you are. It's not as good. Then there are some maps that are important for battles. if they are important for battles. One of the biggest decisions for me is always, do I want to play this battle gridless or do I want to play it with a grid? Again, you need to decide this per map. You need to go, does the grid fit? Are there spaces that the grid doesn't allow players to use? This corner, it's fine. There's this square. But if the grid was bigger, if this was the square, I'd already be a bit, I don't know if I want to play this gridless. Do I need to change the grid? Do I need to quickly make my own grid? Again, takes more time in consideration. You come to other battle maps, you also need to consider the size of where you place stuff. If you have an encounter, do you start the encounter immediately or do you let your players wander around and find some stuff? Then some more gaze setters. Again, this is all stuff that needs to be prepared, that you need to find in advance. So, luckily, I'm in a position where I can license a lot of stuff. So this goes a bit quicker for me because I also don't need to search so much because I have a big database. I think I have close to 1200 maps now. I would need to check, but my TTRPG folder is close to 140 gigabytes now. So I have a lot of different maps, so I can often find something that fits my purpose. But if you're not in that situation where you can just license stuff properly, you do need to scour a bit more. Can I find something for free that fits this? If you are lucky enough to have the knowledge of how to make maps or know someone that can make it for you, that will obviously help you, but that will also take time communicating with that person. And now this person has to invest time. Close and all the setup with all the enemy tokens and stuff, once that's completed for this, is about 2 hours. So we are already over the 10-hour mark, and we have just created the job and added a few Roll20 pages. This doesn't include stuff like making all your handouts, taking care of your handouts, cleaning out your room, making sure that everything is right. If you're someone like me that uses a lot of extensions and API programs, checking that those work, setting those up takes a lot of time. Obviously, only really once, but it's still a lot of time that you need to invest. For me, another giant time sink is making music. Setting the entire scene and getting everything set up takes a long time. So this is, for example, the sound set for the Eldorado job. Making this sound set took me about 5 hours in total. Now you might be wondering, why does this take 5 hours? First, I have to scour if there are things that I already have a license for, because with Sirenscape and the subscription, watch the Sirenscape tutorial to find out more about that. There are a lot of licenses that you need to set up your moods. You need to sometimes adjust them. There's often stuff that I can't just use. There's like music missing for something. For example, when I was working with the first bar, like with the first iteration of the Velvet Mirage, I did have a pre-made one. It should be this one. No, then it's this one. Yeah, I had a pre-made one that I added some stuff to that I liked. But I didn't like the music. It didn't give me a good feeling. So what did I have to do? I had to go out, find some music, sometimes cut it up to get around some software limits. Then I Had to edit that music, add some more background effects, add some filters, just get it sounding right, which again takes time. And I think that's time that's sometimes not considered when you think about this entire thing. And I sometimes feel like it's not properly valued what amount of effort is invested into these things and how people treat the people that invest into them. So if we again think about it, making the document took me about 6 to 8 hours, something in between there. Setting up Roll20, another 2 hours. Making the sounds, another 4 to 5 hours. So we are well into over 10 hours of just making this game. Now you could go, oh, but you can run it so many times. Again, I need to make the list. I need to schedule the game. That takes time. I need to see where in my schedule can I fit doing this. Where in my schedule can I dedicate 5, 6, 7 hours of my day to doing this for free. So where can I dedicate an entire workday to just doing something? Often for other people. Obviously, I do enjoy running games. Often. There are certain games that I don't enjoy just because I don't enjoy the theme that I made for that game. But I made it for another reason, to explore mechanical things, to just get better at other things. But sometimes also a game that you really enjoy can be a bit, I don't want to say ruined, because that's a strong word, but made a lot more difficult. Depending on a expectation mismatch. So that is something that you should always be careful about. You read a job, you look at what are the tags for this. And if you are unsure, is my expectation of this what this will provide? It's always better to go, hey, GM, from reading this, I do have this and this expectation. Is that correct? Can I actually get these things from this game? Or does it have like another angle? Or does it do something that doesn't fulfill this expectation? So we have made the game. This has taken us 10 to 12 hours to make the game. And Eldorado isn't a big game in that sense. It's not like there's a lot. It's a detailed game, but it's not big. It doesn't have many branches. It's mainly focused on the things it does, and the things it does best is highlight the setting that it's in, because that was the intention once again. So I'm not gonna take the whole setting thing and creating lore for an entire place. Creating a place. If you create a place, you need to start thinking about logistics. Why are people there? Why are people there? Why do these routes consist through this place? But I'm not gonna value that into this time. So we are at about 12 hours. Then we need to schedule the game, create the ticket, get everything set up. I would say this takes me about another hour if I like do it carefully and do maybe multiple tickets and really schedule it. If I throw something out quick, I can do it in 15-30 minutes. Okay, we have now come to game day. What do we need to do? First, make sure that everyone has imported their characters. If people have imported their characters, it helps a lot, because when I look at the character sheets before the game, So we are now in a time frame about 2 hours before game starts. Start opening up character sheets. Look at these characters. What can they do? What are these characters good at? Is there a character that's very good at social interactions but doesn't seem to excel in combat from its stats and abilities? All of these are things that you need to take into account because this is again a personal thing that I think does fit for most GMs. Every player creates a sort of fantasy of what they want to do with their character and want to experience. And one of the hardest feats as a GM is looking at these characters and just extrapolating what is the fantasy of this character. If I look at this, what is the whole goal of this? So if we, for example, just take something totally different, this is not a TFC character, this is not an NPC, this is something personal from a while back. You see a character that is clearly completely above what you would normally find as a player character. I mean, we have a plus 35 to Arcana, plus 17 int. This is definitely a character that is not meant for a player. But what is the fantasy behind this? There are a lot of flaws. Looking through these, balance, beauty, what do we have? Some bonds, 2 locations, we have some personality traits. It seems that this character, they are secretive, they are a bit unyielding, they are resentful, manipulative, but also kind of burdened just by being this above large character. So you need to start taking those things into account. What can this character do? Does a character seem to have a certain feature that's really important? Did the player do a lot of stuff with the character background that seems to tie into some mechanics? That is something that usually takes about an hour, 90 minutes. Just look through all of these and get a general sense of who your party is and what they kind of want to do. We are now half an hour before the game. So we have a 15, for me, we have a 15-minute window to get ready. What does this include? A short bio break, getting something to drink, getting some snacks, dealing with anything that came up, looking if someone dropped out last minute, dealing with that, helping players with other stuff. We are now 15 minutes before the game. We are in the voice chat, we are waiting, players join. And the whole reason why I made this is because I personally have this specific rule that I want people to be there earlier. I have a set rule and I'm very peculiar about it. Because there's a lot of stuff that I need to also get to players and kind of discuss with them and find out. And yeah. Then the game starts. When the game starts, you're doing a lot of stuff. It's not like you're just sitting there reading off a script. Yes, you do have some notes, but you need to know these basically by heart. Because what you're doing is on another screen, you're manipulating tokens, if you have to, if there are like NPCs in the scene. Or, I do this beforehand, I set up player tokens on all the maps before. Another thing I do in those 15 minutes, just so that I can move on quicker. But you are manipulating tokens, you are interacting with players, you're paying attention to what they are doing. If they are doing something that's kind of weird, you need to start thinking about what's the rule of this. What's like the ruling? Because what often comes up is that if you in a spur of the moment say, no, I don't allow that, or a player says, I want to do this, and you go, yeah, sure, fine. Some other players might feel bad because when they wanted to do that at another table, they couldn't. So you need to have an overview of the rules. And then for me, I now also need to juggle the music. I need to switch to moods. I need to start clicking different things. I need to make sure that everything is working. I might need to add some sounds live during roleplay. I might need to play some extra sounds in the background just to enhance what's currently happening. And while doing all this, you are paying attention to 4 to 6 people interacting with each other and with you. And maybe having problems or currently thinking about stuff. Or saying what they want to do. And you can't just not pay attention. So I think that it's important if you are someone that plays in one of these games. I don't want to say to recognize the privilege, because that sounds kind of weird, but it's also kind of true. To recognize the privilege of someone offering all of this effort to you for your enjoyment. And for nothing else. Yes, also for their enjoyment, sure. But the reason why I enjoy running games, at least particularly me, is because the players enjoy it. If the players enjoy it and I can see, oh, they're having fun, they're interacting with each other, they're interacting with the world. That's what makes it good for me. But that is something that I provide for people. I still get enjoyment out of it, but that's about it. I don't get any return of the investment in a very economical sense, if you speak of it. So what I wanted to convey is just how much it takes to make this stuff and how much effort it takes to run this stuff. Just to give people a kind of reference plane to what is your GM putting in to give you a sort of reference point for maybe some stuff you need to put in. Like reading the rules beforehand and seeing, oh, I need to be there early. Or reading the table rules and seeing, oh, I might need clarification on this. I don't quite know what they mean by this. Or just generally checking. There's a game on this day and then checking the tags. Are these tags what I'm searching for? Obviously, there are also days where you just want to play, so you just go, yes, sign me up. But if you go into a game with this kind of stance, I just want to play, I don't really need to see what this is about. Also know that it's kind of your responsibility to, if you notice, oh, I don't enjoy this. This is not what I thought about. Also just kind of go, maybe in a break, maybe through a whisper, or maybe, usually I would say through a whisper or a message is the easiest thing. Just go to the GM, just telling the GM, hey, I signed up to play, I just didn't know what to expect and this isn't really for me, but I'm still gonna do my best to play this game and make it enjoyable for everyone. Because that's kind of your responsibility if you signed up. It's a group effort and nothing hurts me as a GM more than seeing specific players suffering from just it not being seen as a group effort. No one's there alone, everyone's there for a purpose, but everyone's also different. So if we are now moving into some wild territory, as I am just rambling about, so give me a second to take a sip of water while I will let you go with some heavy rain. Just so you know, this is also made up of multiple. And for example, for this I have a entire music thing that I needed to edit and get done right, which also took. But I'm digressing again. I think it's important as a player to understand what the player fantasies of the others are. But I also think it's important if you're a player to start thinking about not really what does my GM want. I will just be plain. That's not, I think, the main point you should consider. But what does this game want from me? Is this currently a place where, for example, I can just RP my character as I want and can just really get immersed? Or are we in a kind of tense situation where I can see that the other characters or players are kind of getting into it and discussing it hardly and trying to, for example, figure out the best strategy? That's not the point where you as a player should go full Leroy Jenkins and just run in there, because it will not feel good for the others. This is again quite a broad statement, because it can also happen that that is just something the others enjoy. It's very important to get that vibe, but once again, it's not something that you can do immediately. It's not something that's expected of you. It's just something to consider. To wrap this entire thing up, because I've probably rambled about for long enough. When you take part in some things, please try to consider the amount of effort it took for another person to create the thing you are enjoying. Especially if they are doing it for you. I once again, I'm about to ramble again. I do think there's a difference between something like running a D&D game and a movie. If you're watching a movie, someone has invested time and you can now enjoy it. If you're experiencing a D&D game, someone has invested time to make this and is now investing more time to provide it to you as a service. So, yeah. I will also be very open in the sense that if I look at something like El Dorado and I'm asked to, hey, put a monetary value on this, because again, I will be very open. I do also offer paid games for people that just want them on demand, that go, hey, I want to play this with some friends at this and this. The El Dorado game, I would probably price this at about 35 to 40 euros a player. So it has 4 players, so we would come out to 45 times 4. We are coming out to 200 euros-ish. Compared to the amount of time that it alone takes to run the game, that's dirt cheap. Like, I don't want to be in any way talking down here, but that's really cheap. If we are talking about a 6-hour game with another, let's say, 1.5 hours of prep time, so we are at 7.5 hours, that would be actually pretty much on point. Okay, great. It seems that when I made my prices, I actually considered things. Shit. I ruined everything. Anyway, when you have a game and there are some things to consider, please also make sure to respect the time and commitment of the others, of the other players, of your GM, and maybe some things in the background that enable it, although those aren't as prevalent. Yeah. And if you're 15 minutes late 2 times, you're getting table banned. Sorry.